Hello there GCSEers, and today we're going to look at arguments for and against why people would allow certain medical treatments in life itself. So not dealing with the beginning of life, which we dealt with when we looked at surrogacy and artificial insemination, all those kind of things, but actually in life itself. So we're going to start off by looking at these four topics. We're going to look at cloning. Okay, whether people can actually clone either a whole human being or parts of a human being's body and what the arguments for and against those. Blood transfusions, like we say, when people give blood and are able to put blood into other people if they're having an operation or they've had an accident or something like that. Transplantations, whereby people are able to give parts of their body probably after death or maybe possibly during life for kidneys and the liver and things like that, and give it to other people so that they may live. And finally, human experimentation, and then human experimentation maybe using possibly animal tissues or animal organs. Okay, now let's have a quick look. First of all, we're going to start off with cloning. Now, as I said, cloning is much misunderstood kind of medical procedure. Here, it's often in science fiction, things like the Clone Wars in Star Wars or other science fiction movies that show cloning. And obviously, Dolly the sheep here we can see. Obviously, this kind of cloning is not allowed the world over. There's a worldwide ban on this kind of thing. And ultimately, it would, if it was allowed, then would it be successful? Well, number one is the key thing, and then also, what's the value of that person's life if they've been cloned? That would be quite a difficult one. Now, most religions would disagree with the complete cloning of somebody. For example, a Christian would say that only God would be able to give life, and this is humans playing God. And Muslims would say exactly the same kind of thing. In the Quran it says God created you. Right? So the idea is that human life shouldn't be created and built by some kind of like human beings in a medical lab. So the key thing is, however, though, there's a different type of cloning, and this is the cloning we're going to focus on. It's called therapeutic cloning. And I'd like you just to have a look at this video, just to have a look and see what therapeutic cloning actually is.
The kidney is a highly complex organ, yet here it has been regenerated in a lab in Boston. This rat's kidney can both filter blood and produce urine. Once transplanted, it functioned only partially, but scientists believe this is a highly significant moment.
This is a real breakthrough for regenerative medicine. It shows that one of the nirvanas, one of the holy grails of transplantation could be achieved within our lifetime.
That holy grail is to produce transplant organs which the body won't reject. This healthy rat kidney was stripped of its native cells, leaving behind a white collagen scaffold. Then it was reseeded. If this was a human organ, they would use cells taken from a patient needing a transplant, so the body would think it was their own kidney. The same experimental technique has been used in animal research to create lungs, here functioning in the laboratory, as well as working hearts and livers. So this is a pig esophagus which is being tissue engineered by scientists here at the Institute of Child Health. They hope within a couple of years to do the first human esophagus gullet transplant using that technique. But more complex organs like the liver here, the kidneys and intestines, those transplants into humans may take many more years. 3 people a day die in Britain because of a shortage of donor organs. So will livers and kidneys grown in dishes ever stop that?
One day the shortage of organs will be solved by technique similar to this. But what we really need is to build synthetic organs in the lab. So we'll not have to rely on any donor organ, and we are not quite there yet.
Synthetic organs may sound like science fiction, but look at this, an artificial windpipe seeded with a patient's own cells, which was successfully transplanted in Sweden 2 years ago. There is a long way to go, but regenerative medicine is set to transform the field of transplant surgery in the years ahead. Fergus Walsh, BBC News.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, what did you think of that? Now, therapeutic cloning. Obviously, things like being able to use stem cells to build organs and to actually build people, so that if someone needed a transplant, there would not be the opportunity for the body to reject the transplant of whatever organ it is, because those would have been built with the person's cells, okay, with the person's stem cells. And of course here religion would have a lot to say about it, and they would definitely say that Christians would definitely use Joe Fletcher or Jesus' teaching about do the most loving thing. And if love is the way that we decide what's right and wrong, then Jesus healed the sick and things like that. And this would be a great way of actually helping other people. So medical research would be able to do that, to grow organs and to help people and to keep their lives going. And as we said before, it's really important as well. Muslims would agree. The idea is that the most loving thing is the whole point. Second thing we're going to look at is blood transfusions. Now, blood transfusions are where somebody gives blood, and that's used in a hospital either for an operation or if someone needs it because they've lost a lot of blood in an accident or something like that. And most religious people and most people would support blood transfusions. Lots of adults give blood because of it. And it saves lives, which is obviously sacred. And Pope John Paul II, a Roman Catholic Pope, he said that it was called the greatest act of charity. And most people, as I say, would give their blood because the blood replenishes in people's bodies, and it's a very good thing to do. Now, there is a Christian organisation or Christian group called Jehovah's Witnesses, which you may well have heard of, and they do disagree with blood transfusion. And that's because in the Bible, and they take the Bible very seriously, in Leviticus 17 it says that blood is sacred and God gives it to us and it's his life. So basically they would disagree with it because they don't believe that blood can actually be shared amongst different groups of people. So they would reject the idea that blood transfusions are a good thing. So most people agree with it, most Christians agree with it, it's the most loving thing to give blood. However, Jehovah's Witnesses disagree with it because they believe that it's a gift from God. Okay, the next one is transplantations. Now, transplantations is where somebody will give an organ probably after their life. You remember I showed you my donor card, which you get now from when you apply for a driving license. And transplantations, and obviously arguments for it, can save human life. Of course, if someone need a heart transplant, here's a picture of the first ever heart transplant, the doctor who actually did it, then it's a very, very good thing. Again, most Christians, and we can go back to the quote from Pope John Paul, would believe it's an act of charity. And Joseph Fletcher, as we said, using the idea Jesus said, love your neighbour, he would say that's the most loving thing to do, is to give your organs as transplantations when you're dead, or your kidneys and your liver if you're actually alive. Now, obviously, there's arguments against it. Is it disrespectful to mess with a dead body, which is God's creation? Surely we should respect the dead body, not be cutting it up and using it. However, even Jehovah's Witnesses allow transplantations as long as no blood is involved. And I'll show you in lessons video about how no blood transplantations have actually happened and have actually advanced human science and human medicine. So transplantations is quite an easy one to look at because most religions believe it's an act of charity, an act of love, and the most loving thing to do. Exactly the same with Christianity and Islam. Now, human experimentation. This is where people test either drugs or a medical procedure on a healthy person or on somebody who's sick in order to test whether they're okay. Each drug or each medical procedure has to go through various testing processes, and human experimentation is one of those. Now, again, Fletcher. Jesus said, do the most loving thing. Jesus said, love your neighbour. And if loving your neighbour is doing the most loving thing, then experimenting on humans would be the most loving thing. I mean, if I was very ill and someone created a drug that needed testing on humans, then it would be pretty simple for me to say yes, because I might help other people by testing to see if the drug's good and even if the drug's bad. So again, Christians would support human experimentation, as would Islam. Okay, Islam as well, saying, the idea of they should support medical research. Medical research is a gift from God, and we are understanding Allah, God's creation, by doing so. Now, some people would be against human experimentation. Now, if they believe that the humans are the greatest part of God's creation, then it's possibly to endanger life is disrespectful, potentially harmful to people. And, that's quite important for some people because they believe that human beings are the high points of God's creation. Also, some people are against human-animal hybrid. experimentation, where animal organs or are allowed to grow certain organs on animals and things like that, and using those within within human bodies, some people believe is wrong, especially if that animal, like a pig, which is very closely linked to a human, is used there. So some religions, for example Islam, do not eat pork, and so therefore would not have something that's been tested on a pig or something that's in their own bodies. So, ladies and gentlemen, there you can see arguments for and against those 4 areas: human experimentation, transplants, blood transfusions and cloning. And ultimately, same as every other argument that we go through, is it a good thing to do these things? Should we use humans to experiment? Should we be able to transplant organs when someone's died or even when someone's alive? Should we be able to have blood transfusions? And should we use something like therapeutic cloning to clone certain organs that we actually have? Well, at the end of the day, what do you think?